come here for a second. Have you noticed that everybody seems to be going on and on and on about productivity hacks? Everyone seems to have these silver bullets that can make you 1,000,000 times more productive. And I just think a lot of them are kind of like bad diets. You know, you're excited for a couple of days and then you kind of fall off the wagon and then you're back to square one. Well, what I want to share with you in this video is a lesson that I've learned. I'm not going to degrade it and call it a hack, but it's a lesson that I found unbelievably helpful in taking, you know, your goals, your dreams, your objectives that you've got in your head that you want to make real and actually make them real. So what I want to do is I want to share this lesson with you in this video and then illustrate it with my own experience of how I built a product and shipped it a lot more quickly than I would have anticipated if I'd not applied this lesson. Does that make sense? Yep. All right. So let's dig in. Let's first of all start with the lesson itself. And it's this, okay? So what you do is you set a deadline. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, come on, Bacon. We've set deadlines before. They didn't really work, okay? Are we going to do this again? No, I'm halfway there, all right? So set a deadline with an external commitment. I'm very carefully writing because my handwriting sucks and I know it, and I always know I disappoint you all in my videos when I write things on this desk. All right, so let me illustrate it with an example to make all of this make sense and explain what I'm about to talk about. So at the beginning of this year, I was running my consulting business. That's what I was mainly doing, helping people to build communities. And without sounding like an egomaniac, it's been very successful. I never struggle for work, lots of client interest, clients are happy, and work with all kinds of different people from early stage companies to big organizations, okay? But I'd been hankering to build a broader kind of group coaching style program where I can impact a lot more people and also have something to sell at a lower price point because my consulting is pretty expensive, okay? I've been thinking about this for years. I'd never really actually kind of got around to doing it. And I decided right at the beginning of this year, I'm going to do it. So I started asking around to get some guidance and help for the best way to put this into action. And this is when I learned this lesson, okay? Now, there's a couple of important pieces here. The first piece is this, right? Which is the deadline. Now, I said I wasn't going to just dwell on this, but setting a deadline is really important when you want to get things done. And don't worry, it's not all going to be about the deadline, because it's the external commitment which is going to be the real juice here, okay? But what you want to do is you want to set a deadline when you are going to ship the thing that you see in your head, okay? So in my case, I was thinking I want to be able to deliver this group coaching program where I'm going to show people how to build a new community in like 12 weeks, and I want to specify a date when it will be ready, okay? Now, I decided that date was going to be the 6th of March, 2022, okay? This was about 3 months after I had started this project, all right? 3 months later. I figured if I can't get this ready in 3 months, then there's something wrong, okay? But that's the first piece. The real value here is this. It's the external commitment. Is that what you do is you say, on the 6th of March, 2022, there are going to be other people who are going to be consuming the thing that you're building. All right, so in my case, it's going to be students who've bought and paid tickets to my group coaching with their good, hard-earned cash. They're going to be in there and they're going to be ready to start the program on the 6th of March, 2022. Okay? Now, what I found here is that when you set a deadline without an external commitment, it just might not happen, right? And how many times have you set a deadline and it just hasn't happened, or it's pushed back and it's pushed back and it's pushed back, and other things kind of get in the way, and then you, oh yeah, remember I set that deadline, right? It happens all the time. Don't feel bad. It's part of being a human being, all right? We're not perfect. We're not machines. We're not autonomons? Autumnoms. Delicious food that you eat in autumn. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. We're not robots, okay? But when you make this external commitment, when you say people will be involved and consuming on that particular date, now it means you've got to ship. You've got to get it done, okay? And now I want to walk through how I got to building my project, building my masterclass in that time frame. Okay? Now, the first thing I did is I thought, okay, well, I've committed to this date. Now what I want to do is I want to create a mind map. Okay? So what I did is I basically sat down and mapped out what was my product going to look like. Okay? And it looked like, I put this mind map together. It kind of looks a little bit like this. I'm not going to go into this in detail. This is super rough, okay? So I did this in early January, and my program back then was called Zero to Community in 12 Weeks. Now it's called the Community Experience Masterclass. I rebranded it and expanded and all kinds of good stuff. And I basically broke it down into, okay, I thought, well, let's start out with 4 modules. And then for each of these modules, I just started adding things I wanted to cover in them. Now, from this provided a really easy way to kind of visualize what I was doing. And then what I decided to do was to bake this down into, the 12 weeks of my program. Here's what I'm covering each week, just at a super high level, okay? So I didn't have much more than that, but it gave me enough of what I needed to know to take me to the next step of the process, which was to build a landing page, okay? Now, all of this is going to vary a little bit depending on what you are building, what your product or what your service or what your initiative is. In my mind, I knew that if I was going to really adhere to this lesson of set a deadline with an external commitment, I needed to put together a landing page where I was going to start selling seats for my masterclass. So I'd have people who've paid good money and they're ready to start on the 6th of March 2022. Okay? Now, because I'd already been through the mind map, I had enough information that I could actually put that together. So I started putting that together, all right? And that was good to go. Then what happened, and I'm just going to show you my landing page. Now this is the, oops, let me stop highlighting stuff. This is the landing page for my current iteration of this masterclass. Like I say, I've run it before, I've optimized it, and this is the current version. It's called the Community Experience Masterclass. So the first landing page looked a bit rough, if I'm being honest with you. It was all right, but it looked a little bit rough around the edges. But what I do is I ask people to apply to join my masterclass. I want to make sure that anyone who joins it is going to get a ton of value out of it, because essentially what's happening, my first version of this was Zero to Community was 12 weeks. This is actually 10 weeks now. I shaved off a couple of weeks, and I'm going to show people how to either build a brand new community in 10 weeks or how to optimize an existing community in 10 weeks. And I want to make sure that they're going to get a lot of value out of it. And this has got like live sessions, live coaching. They work on these activities in their activity book, and there's kind of hot seats and clear kind of step-by-step guidelines that they go through as they go through the program. Okay, so I needed to communicate as much of this as I could on the landing page. So I put the landing page together, and then I went and looked this up, because when I asked people to apply for my masterclass, I linked them off to a Typeform survey, and I noticed that the very first application I had in came in on the 25th of January 2022. All right, so I don't know exactly when I launched Zero to Community, but I launched it, must have been around the 25th of January, because that's when I had my first application come in. And I remember the first place that I announced it was to my email list, because I always like to give people who subscribe to my email a first bite of the cherry, and I had a bunch of applications coming in. Okay? Now, it's important to mention, at this point, while I had a mind map and landing page, and I pretty much knew what I was supposed to cover every week in my class, at this point, on the 25th of January, I had not created any of the materials. The student dashboard wasn't up and running yet. I hadn't created any of the slide materials. I hadn't created any of the cheat sheets or the activity book, any of that stuff. None of that existed, right? On the 25th of January 2022. And this is exactly what I wanted, okay? Because do you know what this created? I'll tell you what this created. It created this. Do you know what that is? Take a wild guess, okay? This is a fire, and it was placed rather conveniently underneath my buttocks. I had a fire underneath my buttocks. I'm not going to say the more colloquial way of describing this, because I'm probably going to get complaints is what I'm going to get. But what it meant was I knew that I had to have everything ready by this date, and I didn't have everything ready, but I committed to it with this external commitment. And what preceded was a month of me working my socks off to get absolutely everything ready, okay? And what I'm proud about this is that I built it. You know, I built the first couple of weeks, and each week when I'd be doing my sessions, I'd be building the next chunk of material for the next sessions. I didn't, you know, when I was at week 4, in many cases, I wouldn't have the material ready for week 5 and 6 yet. So I'd be working as I was going through it. But it meant I could build it as I was going through it, as I was getting feedback and input from my customers and my students, okay? But having this fire because of this external commitment meant that I started shipping, meant that activity was happening, and it was super exciting, okay? Now, here's an important thing that I just want to use to kind of underline all of this. I'm going to find a magic color that I've never used on a video. Look at this. This is, what is that? Is that purple? Is it puce? I know puce is a color, but I don't know what it looks like. But this is the magic pen, okay? Because the magic pen has got an important principle, okay? And that is, let's make sure that I'm not going off screen. Progress over perfection, okay? This is super important. Is that when you set your deadline, you commit to an external group of people that you're going to ship to that, you start building what you're going to put together, you've got the fire under your buttocks, is that you don't try to make everything perfect. You make it good, and then you can iterate and iterate and iterate until it's absolutely amazing, okay? If you take this and apply this to your own project, your own product, your own, whatever you're doing, I'm pretty certain that it's going to increase the likelihood that you're going to start delivering some really cool stuff. The thing you're probably thinking is, that sounds terrifying to commit to an external, like to a deadline, to external folks, when you might not be ready yet. Well, you know what? When we are scared, when we're nervous in a productive setting like this is sometimes when our best work shines out, okay? So don't let that put you off, okay? The worst case scenario is that you fail. You're disappointing some people, and if they paid money, you give them a refund or whatever, and that'll be terrible, and you don't want to do that. But what it will do is it'll create the environment to get work done. Way more effective than just saying, oh, I'm going to create this arbitrary deadline without an external commitment and get the work done, okay? Anyway, that's it. I hope this was useful. This has been mind-blowingly helpful to me. I hope it's mind-blowingly helpful to you. I hope one of you knows what this color is, because I have no idea, and I'll see you in the next one.